Good evening, everybody. I know I'm late. I thought I was going to have enough time to get started, and then all of a sudden the deadline goes whooshing past. So let's make sure that everything's up and ready to go, and then we will be playing more of the Book of Hours House of Light beta. And please tell me that House of Light is still on here. There we are. Okay. Yes, we are ready to go. Also, 2024 8H12. There may actually be some more details on here. Books of the Memory which does not die, inscribed in 5 languages over the gate of Hush House. Go quietly. Book of Hours is a forgiving sort of game. If you're worried you might be stuck, there's usually another way. Okay, yes, and there's a little exclamation mark here. So let's start with 12. It may be that these are already... there are a few things here. So let's just work on this this patch. So, patch 2024 8H12. My name is Hokabalda Posen. Do not mangle it in your peasant mouth. There are now hotkeys for expand and contract trays. F1 through F4 by default. Shift-Tab now undoes card sorting. Apples are sometimes found on the moor. Raw pheasant and beef can now be fed to your cat or other carnivorous pets. The bronze knife is now a tool. Typewriters and the Kronsicord can now be used as inks, and typewriters won't be exhausted. In particular, in House of Light, you can now type letters and manuscripts, although you may need more aspect sources. Numerous fixes for Russian and Chinese localization, like settings tooltips now expand downwards, no longer use small caps for intricate font reasons, and like tweaking card sorting orders so we can support multiple alphabets. Let me know at support about any anomalies. This might explain the card sorting thing for me. Cats and Vipers now drink milk. Escape now leaves photo/HUD hidden mode. Scrolling in the wisdom tree is now disabled while you have the settings open. Finally set the wisdom tree to right-click drag only. I didn't realize left-click drag even worked, and it didn't work well, so it confused people. House of Light. If you are short of space in a salon room, you can now perch food and drink on bookshelves. You move the books first, right? You can now make sandwiches with pickled as well as the fresh versions of pilchards and mushrooms. Arguably, this is horrible, but arguably pickling mushrooms is also horrible. Salon timers look pretty. It's easier to make King's Luck pie, and it is possible to make vegetable stew. A handful of unique visitor responses to particular dishes. Mrs. Kill can now be invited for dinner along with her husband, even if she's not a friend. Connie can still be recruited as a founder, even if she makes a certain career choice. Further Stories text size now honors text size setting. Further Stories text can now be click-copied. Lighthouse Institute endings are now available. A potential Institute founder can no longer have both agenda secrecy and agenda revelation. I thought I'd squashed that ages ago, but no. At the end of Salon, food and drink remains no longer manifest as pink triangles. Some achievements will trigger in-game, but they're not yet live on Steam/GOG. Restored Stargazy pie and also jam recipes. Added unique Salon venue verb icons. It is no longer possible to invite a visitor back and re-interact with the same incident a second time. And lots of other fixes. Now, I'm curious about the exclamation mark here. So, House of Light. In the House of Light. House of Light is a big expansion woven deep into the game. Here is a spoiler light guide for how to find the new bits. Food. Combine ingredients at 3 kitchen workstations to create dozens of new dishes. You will need kitchenware items to find all the recipes. The spice scales and Spices and Savors skill will substitute for each other. A writing case. Once you've received this gift, you can record addresses from the calling cards left by satisfied visitors and write to these visitors to invite them back to the house. Visitors don't arrive instantly, visitors don't leave calling cards until you've helped them, and some visitors are easier to summon than others. Place food and drink in one of the 6 salon rooms and then use the bell to begin a salon. Do it right and you will be rewarded with sparkling conversation and lessons. Visitors usually prefer food and drink, which matches their primary interest, but some have additional requirements. Beta note there are about 400 interactions in here, but probably another 100 to go. In particular, the villagers don't yet have unique interactions. Manuscript. Use paper, ink, and skill to write a manuscript based on that skill. These manuscripts may be necessary to satisfy thirst for specific knowledge in further stories. Lessons from Saloms will help you improve those skills to write more useful manuscripts. Tip: you can't reliably control what visitors will discuss. It's a party, not an interrogation, but they will usually provide lessons related to their shared interests. Further stories. Once you have completed an incident, follow it up in the Tree of Wisdoms. Visitors will need more specific help here, perhaps a book on a specific topic or a specific book. Note, further stories for the Invisible Opera and the Dappled Rose are not yet available in beta. Tip: an affair opens to further stories once all interested visitors have had the opportunity to ask you for help with it. Be aware in some further stories it can make a difference who you originally helped. Be careful, this is one part of the game where choices can sometimes have permanent consequences. And last but not least, the Institute. Look for the lighthouse out at sea. When your visitors are ready, use it to establish the true heirs to the Curia of the Isle. Note, only a very limited and incomplete preview of the Institute functionality is available in beta. Tip: further stories outcomes can inspire your visitors to support the Institute for their own reasons. Their nature is constant, but some story outcomes can make them decide to emphasize one agenda over another. Okay, so I think all of that is familiar to us, but I don't think it ever hurts to get some reminders. This is, of course, the expansion that will be coming out next month. I actually think it's exactly a month from now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a look. As of late is due 26th of September, so I'm a week off. But I am looking forward to this nonetheless. So, we are at the beginning of a day. We've got a gale going on, and I had a little bit of a think of this, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time because I was trying to get the stream started, but I made a short list of skills that I think I'm willing to try and commit. So I figured, and this was kind of based off of, so the one problem here is that I did start keeping some notes in my old, so on one of my old playthroughs, but I haven't sort of fully accounted for, I haven't sort of fully accounted for all the skills because at a certain point I had what I needed, and so I just sort of wanted to move on with things. But the short list of skills that when I sort of consulted that list were ones that I was willing to maybe put in. I had Snow Stories, Weaving and Not Working, Signs and Scars, Oronoscopy, Edicts Inviolable, Surgeries and Exsanguinations, Quenchings and Quellings, Magaphine Mysteries, Sharps, Furs and Feathers, and Resurgences and Emergences. And out of that there's a subset here. Weaving and Not Working, Edicts Inviolable, Sharps, and Furs and Feathers have little question marks beside them, so they're ones that I would be a bit less willing to put the points into. One other thing, or like, again, all things being equal, one other thing that I wanted to remind myself about was, so Hill and Hollow is good for effective against infestations. Sharps doesn't follow that. Magaphine Mysteries. Where are you? Okay. So I'm going to put a question beside Magaphine Mysteries because I think there is some logic in trying to move the ones that can clear corruptions. So let's actually take a quick second and look at this subset. So Snow Stories, okay. Weaving and Not Working, okay. Signs and Scars is okay. This one's actually going to be a bit of a dilemma because it's between Horamachistry and Hushery, two of which I can potentially commit to something. I also need to remind myself about... so there is the... the final commitment that I'm going to make, which is Crack Track, and that goes to Illumination or Preservation. Well, actually, sorry, Illumination or Preservation isn't a dilemma yet because I haven't worked out what I'm committing to that. Okay, so where was I? Signs and Scars, Oronoscopy, which I may not have yet. Edicts Inviolable. Okay. Surgeries and Exsanguinate. Now, I may prefer this one in Preservation for lore reasons, but surgeries and exsanguinations right here. Now, this is good against infestations, so I'm going to put a question mark beside that one. Quenchings and Quellings. I'm a little surprised if I don't have that, but... Oh, yeah, it's right. Oh, that's right. Hang on. That shouldn't have been on the list. My bad. Megafiend Mysteries, Sharps, Furs, and Feathers already have question marks beside them, and Resurgences and Emergences. Okay. So realistically, my short list here is... I'm actually going to change the tool. Okay. So what I'm looking at here, let's actually take a minute at the Tree of Wisdoms. So Snow Stories, my options here would be Whist or Tryst. Weaving and Not Working, my options would be Heart or Core. Signs and Scars. So, Tryst or Fet. This one's tough for a couple of reasons, just because it works for both that I want to level up. So basically I want to get Horamakastry from 2 to 5, Bosk from 2 to 4, and Hushery 2 to 6. So I think I said I couldn't find Oronoscopy right now. I guess I could take a look at Sky, but... Okay, Edicts Inviolable is Metal in Horamakastry. And Core in Preservation. Surgeries and Exsanguinations, and again we were on the fence about this one, so is Whist or Core? Megafiend Mysteries. Tryst. Or Heart. Or Health, sorry. Sharps. Whist. Or Shapt. Furs and Feathers. Health or Fet. And finally, Resurgences and Emergences. Health or Core. Okay. So if I take a look, there's one last step that I'm going to do. I'm actually going to put my question marks on their own section on my sheet. So I think it would be fair to say that this shouldn't take this much planning, but one of the catches for me right now is that if I sit down and plan everything, I have the benefit of knowing that, like, nothing's going to be out of place. Whereas if I just sort of follow intuitions somewhere, the problem I run into is that I potentially wind up in a situation where I can't commit something later on. So I use up all the slots for another... I use up all the slots in one of the certain paths. And I'm a little conscious of that. So what I'm trying to do here is just make sure that I'm something of a good steward of the skills that I do have, so I don't work myself into a corner. But on the other hand, the one thing I don't want to do is sort of reduce the stream down to a couple of hours of skill planning and then say, okay, see you all Friday when we finally implement all this stuff. So I wanted to try and do this in sort of bite-sized pieces. The current set I'm working with right now are... Good Lord. Sorry, I messed up. Yes, I mean, realistically, I only have 3 that don't have a question mark beside them, which is not a great start. But there is one other thing that I was taking a look at, and this is sort of the trade-offs between the different elements of the soul. So one thing that I'm currently working with right now, and it may not be a bad idea for me to just take stock of what's currently running. So I've currently got 2 health. I'm going to start making some notes about these two. It's 2 health, 1 Arab. One core. One whist. That's not true, that's 3 whist. So why didn't I bring Mr. Kill in? We can definitely get him to open the Worm-Eaten Hall. Maybe I was trying to figure out what to do with my... Oh yes, I think I might have been figuring out whether or not I want to bring in Mrs. Kill. But while I work that out, let's record the rest. So I've got 1 Fet, 1 Metal, 1 Faust, and 3 Trist. So what's eventually going to happen for me is when I take a look at some of the trade-offs that I have, I think I put this on my tablets spreadsheet program. So when I count the total number, so in terms of skills that can go into Hushery, there's 16. For Ithistry and the Bosk, there's 17. And then the smallest number of skills that can level up an element of the an element of the soul is 15. So that's for Shapt and that's for Metal. There's a bunch of 16s for Whist, Fet, Arab, and Core. There's a couple of 17s, which are Faust and Health, and then Trist there are 18. So the one that's least likely to throw me off would be... the one that would be least likely to throw me off would be Trist. And then Whist, I'm a little bit lucky because, again, I've already got the 3. And then on top of that, I should expect one more from one of the secrets in the house. And then... yeah, so I'm basically halfway there. Okay. Gives me something to think about, at least. So, let's get down to business here. So we've got Snow Stories as an option. And I think on its own, there's not a whole lot to lose by committing Snow Stories. Now, I do need to think a little bit about Great Signs and Great Scars because it divides between Horamachistry and Hushery. And then there's Resurgences and Emergences. Now, that one would be going into Bosk, and I think I'm willing to give that up. So let's get those started, especially because the Bosk one is going to be helpful for other reasons. So, Grail and Moth, the gods from stone, made a law that the keys of Dream cannot be held or owned. The time of stone is past, but the keys remain. So the holders of these keys can only be the 7 Legions, whose crime has set them outside the law, but the Legions serve an hour of Grail and Moth. When the last remnants of the gods from stone are consumed, the law will be consumed with them. Bosk is the wisdom of change. Okay, so I'm just going to get that one off the list. Snow Stories, I think I'm also willing to take the plunge, so we'll commit you. Much is lost. Still all the winds, still every beating tongue. Now still the mirrored moon, the sea's cauldron. When nothing's left, and then nothing is undone. Hushery. So I'm also going to increment these notes here. So now we've got 3 health and 4 whist. Okay, moving on. So Sharps was for what it gave me. I thought I just had first. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so Sharps and Furs and Feathers were for what they gave me, and then Weaving and Not Working. Okay. So I think I have some ideas about how to work with this. So I've got a Bosk. Okay, 2 Bosk and a Hushery. So I think the obvious step here is to level up Sharps, Furs and Feathers, or Weaving and Not Working if I can. Because these are Hushery skills, which currently I want to put deeper down the Tree of Wisdoms. So to that end, let's take a look and see what we have available. So this is a piece of cake. This I don't think I'm quite ready for yet. Right, these were all new. But I had a doubles shelf. Okay, I'm gonna guess that I can do these. So, Tridesma Hira gives me moon, so the moon could be used to level up sharps, but I'd have 2, so I would need to think about the other one. That's Grail. And I don't have an easy answer for the Grail. I mean, I could also put it into Edict's Martial. Weaving and not work. Well, yeah, Desires and Dissolutions is actually in a very similar spot to Tridesma Hira, so these are less helpful than it first seems. But Resurgences and Emergences may have an answer here. So that's a Grail and a Moth, so that gets me Weaving and not working. But we're back to the same problem where because it's Grail, it doesn't give me as much. And then finally we've got Edict's Liminal. Now that one we technically haven't committed to the tree yet. That would be a Nyctodromi or a Scolacosophy. This actually also could be useful in other senses too, so maybe I want to hold off on reading that one anyway. 3 Flowers hath the tree, so that I believe we already have Leaves and Thorns and we're currently using it. Good old Nectar. All right. Maybe the better question is, okay, yeah, so Snow Stories we've already committed here, right? So this one would have Winter and Moon. And I'm still sort of in a bit of trouble here. Gemini might help out, though. So that's Heart and Moth. Now, I suppose I could just jump this up by 2. Okay, that one's a possibility. Let's put these 2 because we've already committed the Elements of the Soul. So I think I need to commit a little bit more to be able to make some firm determinations, but we are getting a little bit closer to some harder decisions here. Okay. Let's also figure out what I'm trying to do with my hirelings. So I think one question I had was, what can I do with Heart? Would seem to me that probably we want Mrs. Kill in this case because she won't cost money. So now the question is, how far can I level her up? So I've got Mrs. K on her own, so that would be good for 1. So then we add the core. That would be good for 2, so she's up to 3 now. We've got the tool, which would give us another 1, which brings her up to 4. And finally we have the Gale. That gives us 3, and so that brings her up to 7. After that, we need to decide what are we doing to improve her heart. And for it to be worth it, we need to bring her up to... Is it really 11? Yep. Okay, so we're 4 short. That's going to mean that we need probably Ruby-Wise Ruin, or we need a 2 heart and a 2... Sorry, 2 heart food and 2 heart drink. So we've got the canned ham. That's a good start. Skin Shuck Mead is definitely a very heavy way to solve that. I feel like we can do better. Yeah, the heart is the real... heart liquid is the real question mark here. Sorry, just taking a look at. I believe the Isle... Well, actually, Mist-Kissed Water might do the trick. Nope, that's still just 1 heart. I'm also a little surprised that I can't find a... Oh, here it is, Ruby-Wise Ruin. So this is quite a bit to give up on its own. I don't have a good plan for how to get it back, if I'm completely honest. But I guess the question is, like, realistically, what is my argument for doing something, like, doing something different, right? These resources kind of exist to be used. So I think I'm going to resign myself to using the Ruby-Wise Ruin. And yes, we are going to bring in Mrs. Kill. I am also unfortunately going to use my health for this, but we can always restore that through other means. Oh, no, it has to be Grail. Okay. That will be inconvenient for my... yeah, that is going to be a little inconvenient for the timings of things, but fair enough. I suppose the question now then is, do I want to try and do some more gardening? Or do I want to try and make... I think we're going to go back into the garden, assuming that I have... drums and dances should cover me here. Okay, so we know we're going to bring in Mrs. Kill and level her up to the relevant... holy hell, I've already got lessons here as well. Okay. I think I'm going to ignore these for now. I do need to use them before autumn, but I'm going to get another... I'm going to get at least one more room opened. And preferably it's going to be one that's heart without Grail. So like the Collapsed Cellar would be a good one. I think we might be able to do something with the Fallen Bells. So yeah, I think the Collapsed Cellar is going to be the more difficult one. So that's going to be our target for Mrs. Kill for today. What about the rest of my Elements of the Soul? Collected Hush House Lectures is definitely tempting to read. If I wanted to try and level up the Iron... Well, actually, none of these have very compelling arguments for reading today, so I think I will content myself with Collected Hush House Lectures, and then I'm just going to check out the other parts of the village. So, Books of the Memory That Does Not Die. Add aspects to match the book's mystery. You don't always need to fill every slot. Oh. Right. It would be nice if I remembered to add a skill, huh? Actually, I may need to add a little bit more. No, I don't need to, because I just add the globe. Moon, a culmination. I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match Mystery Moon. Okay, that took me a little bit to get started, but we are on our way now. So, for the rest of the... Chunky Man Gamer, good to see you. How are you doing? I think we're going to go straight for the moor. That's wonderful to hear. The Tryst. I think we do some beachcombing too. I'm doing all right. I'm starting late, but I'm happy to... I've got a little bit of a game plan in terms of committing some of these skills, which means that brings us a bit closer to our next salon. So it is going to be a little bit of pulling teeth because I do need to figure out elements of the soul. Like, so really what I need to do as far as my skills are concerned, I need to figure out Horamachistry 2 through 5, Bosk 2 through 4, and Hushery 2 through 6. anything short of that keeps me from really being able to make the progress that I want. But I've at least got sort of those incremental steps and sort of those first few items. And I think from there, I'm probably going to be able to follow up with a few others. So, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Oh, they got rid of the undo button. No, they didn't. Apparently. Oh, yeah, no, I don't like that at all. Okay. I think I'm gonna start manually sorting these. Okay, bake a pear pie. Now we've been working out the different. I've been making a spreadsheet in terms of the various dishes that we can cook. So under pear pie, where are you? That is pudding. So, Forge, Grail, 2 Heart. And Nectar. Flaky, buttery crust, luscious pears with cinnamon and nutmeg. Pudding. If you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? Waters. So yeah, I think we've already got our... Yeah, we've got sort of a full complement here. We'll obviously be switching these around as the need arises. It's actually getting a little tricky for me to remember which rooms I've been better at filling up. This one's fairly easy to see. So this we've got a first course, main course. Okay, we can add a little something here. I've pretty much used up all of my kitchen options for today. If I can think of something else, I'll do it, but I'm okay. I knew that this would be a little bit of a prep just because it's autumn, so I don't have that many more opportunities to get things like pears. We are going to restore the Arab, and that's going to be in anticipation of bringing in Mrs. Kill. It's autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Oh, darn it. I shouldn't have added the tuppence. Actually, yeah, that counts as twopence, or if you prefer, tuppence, a sort of Janus of pennies. It's going to be a little funny the way that I handle things with Mrs. Kill for today, just in terms of my usual order, but I want to make sure that we make the most of the day. All right, fragrant pears, soft in the hand. Should be another one of those. I'm going to move these ones into... Oh. I had a couple of areas for surplus storage. Yeah, I'm going to set these aside just because obviously I'm going to use these pairs. I'm much more likely to use these pairs than the hard to get ones. Okay. We also have carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. I'm actually starting to run out of room here. But I think I have a pretty clear idea on how I'm going to use the day. If I can level some stuff up, great, but I think today's really about making the most of the Gale, and then committing the elements of the soul is going to be a question, or sorry, committing the lessons or the skills, that's going to be sort of the secondary concern. What do we do? Okay, pilchards we can put onto the side here. And quartz chunk. Now, I've always struggled to find a use for these, but I'm not quite at the point where I want to cast everything into the sea. But this seems like the sort of thing I might put in the Nook. Okay, so I'm gonna keep working with my tryst here. Oh, this works. More vegetables. We also have the option of opening this up and getting a specific vegetable. So I imagine that will be unlocking some more recipes for me. But again, it's a question in terms of how long it takes me to take certain actions. So what I'm mostly going to focus on here is I'm going to try and convert sort of metal, Faust, tryst, and whist into money. And that money will also be converted into other elements of the soul, basically. Right now we need a second just to make this all happen. Better now. Alright, so we use this to recruit Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill's mood always improves when I drop by. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. Let's... I'm going to get the core back right away, even if that means breaking the 10 shilling note. Midwife's assistant is somber as autumn, as kind as autumn. She also likes her beer. Okay. I'm going to start with the gale, so talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. So 30 seconds towards that. We still need to find another way to use up the minute, so I'll maybe add the cake bowl, or kitchen bowls next. And we've completed the collected Hush House lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. 1776, the third history. Louis declares the Mask of Masks and forbids mention of the great writhing within the walls of the Palace of Versailles, although by this point the worms are observed to move openly among the boulevards of Paris, sometimes even in daylight. The army is redeployed to defend the court. The mask lasts 1 lunar month and attracts several of the long abroad in Western Europe at the time, fleeing the worms or hoping to take advantage of the desperate Louis, or seeking access to the sealed mirrors of the palace, or just eager to attend the most inventive and desperate debauch of the century. Many know espouse wormish sympathies. Let 100 histories flourish. Tear down the tyranny of eternity. To grow long is usually to cast off these sympathies. There would be no immortality without eternity, and eternity, we often seem to decide, is only tyranny as long as we are not eternal. So, I think I have talked about this before, and I'll be honest, I have not really developed this idea all that well, but this is one of the nice things about being at a point where there's not as many people in the channel. I can talk a little more freely about some of these things. Obviously, this is like a YouTube video and things like that. So I have a little bit of a guess here in terms of what's going on in terms of the background of the game. And like I said, some of you may already be familiar with this. But I've noticed that there have been a number of very good stories which have sort of dealt with things like multiverses and all of that. And obviously this is a thing in physics, and you know, it just, for whatever reason, this seems to be an idea that's capturing a lot of people's attention, and there have been interesting creative works as a result of them. And it's really ripe material for interesting stories, right? Because so many stories that we tell are always sort of, you know, how do you, or what if I had made this other choice, right? I actually, I heard from a friend from my hometown quite some time ago, and I don't think they were in particular distress, but it does seem that it's a bit of a trying time, and they were certainly thinking about sort of where they were with everything. And I can remember talking, or not even talking, it was an email with someone, and I got a really, really nice response. It's somebody I respect quite a bit. It's always a tough one because I do have an independent streak, and I do think that it's important not to have, like, I don't know about the idea of heroes, right? Like, this is always a tricky one. I think there are people that you can have respect, there are people you can admire, there are people you just like hanging around with, but this idea of sort of, on one hand, I'm sort of like, well, yeah, I'm kind of familiar with Aristotle and his ethics and this idea of, the moral exemplar, and, just imagine a moral exemplar, and this is kind of your guide for good behavior. And this actually kind of has a sort of sense to it. And in another sense, it's sort of like, everybody's doing their best. Everybody has their own experience. And I mean, the version of this story kind of gets, I think this story is a bit, the characterization of Ravel and Gershwin in here is a bit unfair, particularly to Gershwin. But there's kind of a story where Gershwin was somewhat insistent that Ravel give him lessons. This is George Gershwin, who worked in Tin Pan Alley, but also has made a number of very sort of beloved, not even beloved, they're effectively, they're the soundtrack to New York. And particularly if you like Woody Allen movies, it gets used a lot. But like there was a wonderful, I think it was in the second Fantasia movie, I think there was a really nice version of Rhapsody in Blue. And at university, I got to listen to a concert where they did An American in Paris. Actually, I really liked that concert because the conductor always sort of says, like, I'll do like two popular ones, and then I get to put in one, one for me, right? Something weird, or something, that doesn't normally get played. And you chose Ligeti, which is nice because it's like, I don't like all of it. And I realize that as a big Kubrick fan, right? Like, it's on, okay, yeah, we all know that you like 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's not really where I'm going with that, but he did one that I hadn't heard before, and I actually quite liked it. I can't even remember the name of it actually off the top of my head. But anyways, the story goes that apparently he was somewhat insistent for Ravel to give him lessons, and Ravel is supposed to have said, why would you want to be a second-rate Ravel when you can be a first-rate Gershwin? Now, I think the more authoritative version of that story is Ravel telling him that, regrettably, all I can make you is a second-rate Ravel. I think the characterization matters, right? Because I think the version that I told has sort of been co-opted maybe for some ideas of like imposter syndrome or something like that. And I imagine that probably Gershwin was confident in his abilities, but was seeking, still seeking lessons. But I don't know, right? Like I'm not a historian on these things, and some stories are better to tell than others. But all of this is to say is that there are definitely people whose opinions I value quite a bit. Obviously, people who have it together more, or people who have accomplished things that you like. The hope is always that you can hear from people who will help you along your way, or maybe just give you a nudge in the right direction. And I definitely received that. And the funny thing is that the conditions under which I wrote that note, I don't know if it was the case that like there was no hope of things changing, but oddly enough, I wound up taking this very circuitous route, both in conversationally but also in life, and I've actually kind of wound up on the other side of the conditions under which I wrote that note. So, I'm sure I would have been like this before, but definitely whenever I wind up having somebody reach out, there's definitely that moment of recognition in terms of how I felt at a particular time and what it meant for somebody to respond. And I always try to make the time, and like, I mean, I already write messages that are way too long, but like, if I really do try to make sure that I do my best, and this happens to be somebody I particularly care for. Like, I don't speak to them regularly, but whenever I do hear from them, like, I always hope that it is good news, and it's somebody that I've known for a while, even if it has been, you know, in conversation on and off. So, in any case, you know, it's, in this case, we wound up sort of talking a little bit in terms of, you know, ideas of different paths and different twists and turns. And again, I think in this case here, like I said, they're not necessarily in distress, but probably also not in the happiest of times. And so wanted to do my best to talk about that. And like I said, this just happens to be something that recently happened, and that of course brings my own memories of things, and it's timely. But of course we also have any number of great poems or songs or all sorts of different things that sort of ask the question, what if things had turned out differently? What if I'd made a different decision or something like that? And that's present inside of this story too, right? We have Trist. When you first commit the book, you know, it says there are choices, and so there are always regrets. And then of course there is, well, actually, I'll maybe talk about one of these letters later. But when it comes to this idea of the histories, I actually, if this is right, this is actually one of my preferred ways of working with it, right? Because there's any number of ways to do multiverses. And so I have this thought here based on this set of lectures in particular, but a couple of other pointers as well, that effectively the way that the world of the Secret Histories is composed is you have the 5 histories, and it is essentially the hours imposing some sort of order on history and preventing them from splitting out into all of these potential paths, right? So I guess the quote-unquote true or the consistent version of the multiverse would be essentially every single time that there is a possibility, there's another branching, there's another branch that emerges, and these might be minor changes, but of course you have the you know, any number, a near infinite number of splits, and so you have this this very wide range. And of course, again, for you it would just be a continuity, but in terms of the overall composition of reality, essentially everything that could possibly happen has happened. And you know, and again, this is not unique to Secret Histories. This isn't even unique to movies. There's one book that I rather enjoyed, Anathem, that kind of deals with a version of this and does so again in an interesting way. And the idea of the birds is that this is ultimately a good, or at least something worth preserving. Whereas the worms, I think in this idea, don't particularly like this idea of enforcement. That, well, as it says here, right, let 100 histories flourish, tear down the tyranny of eternity, and so on and so forth. And if that's true, like, I'm very, very interested in seeing what more I can take out of that in terms of the game. I will bring up just one of the other letters. I think if I go into the local files, I should be able to find it. I just don't want to go back to the main window if I can avoid it. I just found Hokabald's letters. Which one was this? Huh. Maybe it wasn't one of the secret Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. This is 1929, The Sea and the Tide. The Sweet Bones, Brankrug, June 28th, 1929. My dear Christopher, I am so sorry. I would like to help, but I am afraid that I cannot, and I am afraid in any case that you've been terribly misled. The matter is a complex one, but I know how your heart must ache, so I wanted to begin by saying this, that I cannot help, but I will also explain. I know the ink that you describe. It exists. I shouldn't tell you even that, and for the sake of our friendship, I ask that you burn this letter after reading. The ink is called here Incastum Terminale, and it is a great treasure of the house. Its making is a closely guarded secret. Its use by any but the librarian is punished without mercy. When we become aware of delinquencies or abuse, we dispatch the fine-takers in their ultimate mode. Even if I could not frivolously lay hands upon a sample of the Incastum without even I could not frivolously lay hands upon a sample of the Incastum without suffering the severest consequences. But more importantly, the Incastum is not what you have come to believe. Yes, it is used to curate the histories, which is why it is so carefully guarded, but it has no power in itself. It cannot change the past. I do not think it is even possible to change the past, not in the sense that you mean. There are many histories, as you yourself have written. The hours of the Mansis determine what events are considered a history and which histories are braided into the future in which you will read and burn this letter. But the hours are not all-knowing nor infallible. I do not think it is even accurate to call them gods, although we so often revert to that convention. I do not believe, and for this I am grateful, that there are such things as gods. They do not take direction, but they have been known to take advice. You may know that Hush House lies under the hand of certain hours. I have no wish to draw their attention, so I will not name them. But they are most of them those that seek to preserve the world as it is. In our smaller way, that is also the goal of our curia. The librarian of the house is provided with texts that qualify as material, the intercised elements of proto-history, and they make their curations and determinations upon it. When they make those curations and determinations in the Incastum Terminale, the hours take note, and they value the librarian's opinion, if the librarian is of sufficient significance. So that is all the Incastum can do. When it is used the right way, by the right person in the right circumstances, it can draw the attention of the hours, and that is a very considerable thing. But it is not something you could use, and if it were, it would not have the effect you desire. I am sorry, my friend. She is lost to you. I can offer you only this slender comfort. One that you love has that for which she so dearly wished, and you had your reasons not to follow, and those reasons, I think, are very noble. You cannot change the choices you have made. None of us can. But I earnestly believe that you both made choices you should not regret. The sea does not regret the tide, and after the tide withdraws, something always remains, which we call memory. In very deep affection, your friend, E. P.S. I know that I can be an old bore, but for the third time, I must beg you to burn this letter. Now this is also interesting. So I always thought that it was F. But if it's E, I am thinking that this might actually be Isen Fekri. But yeah, so in any case, something that has been on my mind just because of the types of conversations that I have been having. But also, this is kind of a working hypothesis in terms of the nature of the histories and the role of the librarian. And also the division of the birds and the worms. So take that as you will. Okay, acquire Sickle and Eclipse. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. All right. We can add the kitchen bowls. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistants something to help increasing their abilities. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Sickle and Eclipse, Salt and Silver, Balance, Necessity, and Rebuke. I'm going to move the languages down. So the worry that I have right now is that, hello, Selphea. Trouble is here, by which I mean you. It's always been here, but lovely to see you, Selphea. I'm sorry I don't have a bigger audience to shout you out to, but I appreciate you stopping by. How are you? I'm actually rather... I don't know if you got to hear it, but there's a letter that I quite like that was in this game. I got to talk a little bit about sort of the lore underpinning the game, but... or at least my take on it, but I'll not subject you to it. You better leave then. I only come here for the shoutouts. How? I know I'm doing all right. I'm really happy. I really like this game, as I'm sure you don't need me to explain. But I also had I'm finally kind of breaking through a couple of very crammed days at work, and if I can just get a handle on my sort of the stuff that I'm doing on my own time, I'd kind of be coming in from a position of greater strength. So, but yeah, it's been a good day, I think. Alright, this tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, so we've got our 5 now, so let's talk with her and improve the core. Everything goes easier with a song. So that'll bring her up to 4, and then at that point I think we really just use the Rubywise Ruin. We've got a package that's a little inconvenient for storage, but let's see what we can do here. Oh. Did I see an outline? Yes, there we go. We've got one more round with the Tryst, and then I think we can just use the remaining elements of the soul. So another beachcombing. What has the sea seeded today? You suspect you can't see what's going on, Selphea, but I've cooked quite a few dishes, so I will describe. We've got Stargazy pie in one of the rooms. In another one, we have got steamed spring vegetable pie, pickled mushrooms, baked pear meringue, cold pheasant with grape salad. We have got a ham and cheese toasty, marinated roast beef, a pear pie, roast beef, vegetable stew. Was that it? I also have a couple of intermediate ingredients, but... Oh, hang on, no, my bad. We also have a jugged pheasant. Give me the noms, sorry. Would you like a jugged pheasant? My assistant and I are both a little merrier. Alright, and up to level 7 with the drink. I will still talk with Mrs. Kill to get a few more elements of a few more memories in case I want to carry on with those, but I can offer my assistant something to drink. And I will just mention, if you like the noms, this is entirely what the new DLC is about. So I highly encourage you, buy early, buy often, buy a copy for all your friends. This is also beta. I realize you can't see the screen, but I think you already know it's beta. I'm also curious what your work search history is going to look like when you look up a jugged pheasant, if you are not. Because this game taught me what jugging is, so... Alright, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, I don't think I have enough time to get everything done with the elements of the soul. I think basically the metal is forfeit at this point, unless I can find some... Well, that's not true. I can just make something. Let's go to the foundry. We will take bells and braziers and make a bitter black salt. I wasn't going to look it up, but now I have to. So I couldn't find jugged pheasant on Wikipedia, but jugged hare, H-A-R-E, should be there. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I messed up. Oh no, I didn't. We'll just feed her a ham. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will also increase their aspects. It's also just friendly, and I think probably we should order some more ham. Actually, some more flour and maybe some butter. Yeah, flour, butter, and ham, I think, would be a good idea. Wrong one. I also got to introduce jugging to a coworker, and then the conversation turned to noodling. Who threw this overboard? Okay. The sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately. So we'll still talk with Mrs. Kill to get memory. 2 ham, butter, flour. Oh, I want 1 more flour. And I unintentionally ordered dripping. I'll maybe pick up another ham too. Alright, Ava's Lock. So normally I don't have much use for this, but now that I realize it is, it's a flower. Actually, flower and a leaf, but particularly because it counts as a flower, this means I can turn it into Solomon's preparation. So I'm not as unhappy when I get that now. Alright, 1 more ham. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Let's get this off in the post. Provide money equal to the cost, and the postmistress will make out the postal order. So we need 36 for that. So crown. Oops. Post a completed cater and hero order form. Complete the order. And I will see what Mrs. Kill gives me before I commit to keeping something overnight. One can cook with bitter black salts, but only if one uses them very sparingly. Now, oddly enough, I don't think that actually... So it feels like that should be a hint, but I don't believe the... I don't believe the kitchen slot takes a material. It takes beverage, flour, fuel, root, cooking ingredients, sustenance. Yeah, so unless that has changed... The postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Satisfaction. Okay. Not a bad one to get. There it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in Raxent now. So I think I'm going to sleep on the confounding parable, and we are going to get Mrs. Kill to open up the collapsed cellar. The roof has fallen in. We'll need to dig it out. So tomorrow I think there's a pretty obvious move for me to make, which is to... open up the abandoned luggage. But I also think I need to decide what I'm doing with Great Signs and Great Scars and the Rights of the Roots. So, and in fact, I think I'm going to narrow my search again. And this time we're going to start thinking about, I'm going to cast the net for Horamachistry, Hushery, and Bosk proper. And we're gonna properly resolve those now. Alright, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. I will... Hello, Nearly Logical. I am a moron, by the way, Nearly Logical, and I completely confused you for Index Gnome on Monday. And I felt very foolish, because technically you all have different names, you all have different colors by your names, but every once in a while I get my wires crossed in terms of conversation topics. So, but it's good to see you. All right, you know what? Let's get a nice early start on this lesson plan. So sorry, I'm just gonna erase the previous notes. Okay. So again, the name of the game right now is Horamachistry, Bosk, and Hushery. So the easiest way for me to sort this is just to look at the list and see what are eligible candidates. And it actually looks like I have fewer than I thought. So quenchings and quellings is already accounted for. So we got putrefactions and calcinations. Sights and sensations. Ragged Crossroads. I think it's just Rhyme and Remembrance. Okay. So this is actually kind of helpful because I've already got something committed to 2, so we really need 3, 4, 5. So I actually only need 3 of these. And the other thing that's nice is that as I continue to move down the list... Hello, Tiberiosity. No problem. I appreciate you hanging out. I know I lurk enough in your channel, so... but I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope that I do something enough to bring you out of lurking. For instance, perhaps Sylphea will tell you what a jugged hare is. I'll actually take a second here. I know a lot of you are already familiar, but I will, now that we've got a little bit more activity inside of chat, I will just mention that Australia is a wonderful Sylphea broadcaster. Sylphea is a wonderful Australian broadcaster I found through Dendrian's channel. She does a little bit of everything, but I've actually, I've noticed, I won't say lately because I've been a pretty inconsistent viewer, but there have been a couple of games which I've noticed I've either given a second look to or I've discovered. And I always really enjoy the streamers who play games that, you know, cause me to find a game that I wouldn't have seen before. So that's definitely one thing that I like Sylphea for. And for those of you not familiar with Tiberiosity, I've been seeing Tiberiosity play a lot of Final Fantasy lately, the MMO. I think it's 14. But I do also remember him playing some Cyberpunk, which was fun to watch. But also just somebody who has been hanging out in the channel for a while, and I'm always happy to see. So a couple of very nice streamers that I can recommend to you. All right, and for some reason wow. I clearly... here we go. Okay, this was my mistake. So I was focusing too much on winter. That would have been a disaster if I didn't do it. So I was talking about trying to work out a plan, and I was doing that based on winter, not on hushery. So this is a whole other set of considerations. Okay, let's try that again. Hushery. So let's say that the inks of power and revelation are off the table. So we've got Sacra Amaya. Sharp, nope. Sharps counts. So I'm just looking at all of these. So I've got, I'm going to say Inks of Power and Inks of Revelation are not currently under consideration. Snow Stories is already committed, so we've got Magaphine Mysteries, Sharps, Serpents and Venom, Surgeries and Exsanguination, Sights and Sensations, Glass Blowing and Vessel Crafting, Disciplines of the Scar, open question in terms of Great Signs and Great Scars. But again, seeing as I only need 3 through 5 now, so that's 3, 4, 5, I only need 3 skills. The next step is to say, well, which of these am I potentially giving up? So for instance, under Horamachistry, right, so we've got Inks of Power, we have Edicts Inviolable, We've got Sky Stories. Sacrolamea, Bills and Braziers. Edict's Martial is a tough one because I want to make sure that that's to a certain level before I commit that. Drums and Dances. Desires and Dissolutions. Doran Wall. Embering Lapidary. Great Signs, Great Scars. Okay, so we actually have quite a few options there. And those I only... Oh, Hushery I need 2 through 6. So, sorry, the 3 through 6, so I need 4 of these. Okay. So, Great Signs and Great Scars. Right now here, I want a quick peek at anything that I can use to remove curses. So Desires and Dissolutions is also interesting for Bossk. Okay, so Sacrolamea gets a question mark. Okay, so let's say, for the sake of argument, that we knock off Desires and Dissolutions and Sacrolamea. That still gives us, remembering that we only need 2 through 5, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you know what? Let's say Great Signs. In fact, Great Signs and Great Scars. I'm going to make sort of an executive decision here and say that Great Signs and Great Scars is the other half to... Yeah, no worries, Sylvia. I don't expect attendance. It's sometimes helpful to have people to sort of bounce ideas off of, but it's never expected. It's my job to try and come up with something that is approximating entertainment. Okay, so I think in this case here, the easiest thing that I can do is say Great Signs and Great Scars gets us started off with Horamachistry, and that's sort of the other half to Quenchings and Quellings. So, the Great Signs and Great Scars, some glyphs are too obscure to reside in any language, but too potent to remain unwritten. Vak is a great scar, the first enemy of Calyptra. When the black flower blossoms on the Watchman's tree, she retreats, and Calyptra protects perilous knowledge behind secrecy's veil. The nature of their enmity is a Horamachistry matter. Actually, I would have liked to see what that would have been inside of Hushery, but we made our choice, so... And I'm gonna augment my Fet here. So, the tricky part here is to say, what are the... So, I've got sort of this... I've got this sort of batch of skills, and in fact, worse off, I've now locked myself into the decision pattern. So, for instance, here with Sacrolamea, do I put it in Horamachistry? Do I put it in Hushery? I don't know. Although I'm going to say that both of those get a question mark because of their special status. So surgeries and exsanguinations, like that I can probably... Well, no, surgeries and exsanguinations gets a question mark. Okay, I need to clearly reconsider this. So under the question marks, we've got sharps, serpents and venoms, surgeries and exsanguinations, sights and sensations, glass blowing and vessel crafting, and disciplines of the scar. Okay. Edicts Inviolable, Sky Stories, Sacrolamea we've already said is a question mark. Bells and Braziaries, Drums and Dances. Okay, that one also goes into Bossk. Doran Wall, Anburian Lapidary, and apparently I put Sacrolamea a second time because I'm a clown. Okay, so before I make those decisions, let's just take a look at my Bossk options here too. So I've got Weaving and Not Working. Insects and Nectars. Tridesma Hyra, but that gets a question mark. Furs and Feathers. Leaves and Thorns. I think we already put down Desires and Dissolutions, Rights of the Roots. I think I'm going to go all the way with Rights of the Roots, to be honest. Applebright Euphonies. Spices and Savors. And finally, Herbs and Infusions. That one gets a question mark because of its ability to remove corruption. Okay, so Great Signs and Great Scars has already been committed to the Tree of Wisdoms, which now frees this one up for another branch on the Tree of Wisdoms. But before I go any further, let's actually deal with Rights of the Roots. And that one, I can actually use the Occult Scrap, so I'm going to do that. Let's just... Actually, I'll wait for the weather before I commit to anything. Okay, and I'm glad I did that because now I have the clouds to improve that. So, Rights of the Roots. This one we can use the Tryst for. So now we use Rights of the Roots, Earth Sign, Clouds. Consider I am no expert, but I am no dabbler either. So the next question here is, what do I want to use Great Signs and Great Scars for? And a lot of that is going to rest on what I want to commit to the Tree of Wisdoms. So that's a Grail and a Knock that I have ahead of me. But the other thing that I can do for today is bring Mr. Kill in for opening up another room. So we'll speak with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. And I'm definitely going to bring back the whisk this time around because we're going to need more room for leveling things up, I think. So tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. So we're going to have a chat with Mr. Kill now. Collaborate whist. We'll watch for what lies ahead. Boosts Winter and Lantern. We're also going to take the time... Well, I guess I can still talk with him. We'll see where that goes. So I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So I figure I can probably just read Dirashu Quercum right away and turn that into a... I'm just trying to think what my best move would be here. So... yeah, so the Barrowchild's Elegies... Well, we don't know how high this is going through the list, though, so... How you doing, Daily Daybreak? For those of you who didn't know, I actually saw... I got started late, so I didn't get a chance to say hi, but I happen to know that Daily Daybreak was playing Rift of the Necrodancer, which is a truly wonderful... not expansion, but wonderful follow-up to Brace Yourself Games' Crypt of the Necrodancer. I had a lot of fun watching Daelud... I've had a lot of fun watching Daelud play Morrowind, and I think you've done Oblivion as well. But Daelud actually found me through Rift of the Necrodancer. It was an absolute delight to have her in the stream, but also a delight to find her channel. So highly recommend it, especially because I know some of you have gotten a chance to see me do a very unusual playthrough in from the Elder Scrolls Arena up to Oblivion, and I don't know, like that. I have a special place in my heart for that playthrough because I actually didn't care for the Elder Scrolls series that much when I first played it, and I learned to love those games through the process of playing them. So there's definitely some fond memories that come up whenever I watch Daelud play those. So on top of course, just being a remarkably pleasant and engaging broadcaster like Sylphea and Tabirosity. But congratulations on your 120 top 120 Revengeance hard difficulty. I am envious and also a little alarmed. Now, question for you, Daily Daybreak, because I don't think you have seen the... I don't think you've seen a lot of our cooking. Are you familiar with the concept of a jugged pheasant? Perhaps you are interested in the ham and cheese toasty, or the marinated roast beef, or the pear pie. We also have... We don't have anything in... I really got to get some food in here. Oh, did I put something in the... Oh yeah, we already talked about the jugged pheasant. Are you familiar with... Where'd you go? Oh, here we are. The steamed spring vegetable pie. The baked pear meringue. Perhaps you like pickled mushrooms. Or a cold pheasant with grape salad. Or maybe you like stargazy pie. That's a good Google image search if you haven't done it. And I thought I made a... Yeah, we've got vegetable stew and roast beef, but I also thought I made a floating island. Apparently not. Anyways, I am quite endeared with the cooking mechanic in this game. Although I am currently working out other matters. Okay, there's not a whole lot that we can do right now. I'm tempted to go check out Crowcross Sands, but let's actually work on the day's tasks before we do that. No one wants to Google Stargazy Pie? I want to Google Stargazy Pie. Actually, some of my coworkers said that actually sounded pretty good when I described it. And I'll confess, like, I'm not accustomed to eating fish whole, let's say. But You feel you never have the elements of the soul to cook things, but perhaps if I'm clever in my application. Yeah, I need to get better at cooking, but the cooking's a little funny for me because in theory it's the sort of thing that I should get really fascinated by, because there is the whole idea of like combining things and like learning to sort of skill up. Like it's like many other things that I have gotten very interested in, and yet I've never quite been able to sort of push myself over the edge. So what tends to happen is I tend to stick to a very small set of things that I know how to do, and then that sort of leads me to just not have a lot of variation in the things that I eat. And then as a result, that just tends to mean that I eat out more than I should. So, ooh, summer cobblers sounds really good. If you are interested, we have blackberries and rose hips from the moor. We'll be using that to make some goodies. All right, the skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. So I can put things off a little bit longer by opening the abandoned luggage. I'll use my metal for that. Something rare. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. But at some point I'm going to need, and you know what, I've been carrying these books around, but we're definitely at decision time here, so I'm going to, the first decision that I need to make is how many of these things do I want to worry about in this season, and how much do I want to cross over into winter. So Nearly Logical says that's basically my relationship to cooking. I even took a year off work to learn to bake, but I never do it anymore. That's interesting about baking, because I understand baking is quite different from cooking. But yeah, no, I'm kind of envious of the people who really know how to cook, because it's, one, massively useful, and it's obviously, you know, creative in its own way. And like, I'm also sort of conscious of the fact that like we all sort of have skills that people are sort of envious of. I know some of you are very nice about reading the blog and stuff like that, and I actually wish that I was posting stuff more regularly on there, but there's a couple things that sort of got in the way, and there were a couple articles that I was working on, but it just took me too long to get them out, and then sort of the moment had passed. But one thing that I did on my own time, I actually wound up, it's been a while since I've done some kind of fiction. And honestly, like what I did was sort of more like creative nonfiction. I'm still trying to kind of get into fiction. But out of nowhere, I wrote this satire that I was like really, really happy with. And the drawback is that it's there are conditions under it that I can't share. So far as I can tell, at least, it's one of these things that I can't really share with the public, and also I'm not entirely sure I'm not sure it would quite hit the same way. But the thing I'm happy about with it is that the reason why I kind of went on this tangent is that I sort of know, if I'm really honest with myself, you know, when I'm not feeling, you know, oh, you know, I'm not as good as I think I am in writing, blah, 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 blah. But I do know that at least for a couple of people, it's like, oh, I wish I could write like that. Oh, you know, you have maybe even just in terms of speaking. Obviously, I'm not very articulate today, but in some cases, it's like, you know, I kind of wish I could do a presentation like you or that. That's something I have heard in the past. Maybe it's from people with poor judgment, but I'm not going to insult them that way. So, you know, we all kind of have these particular talents, but the drawback is that the stuff that I can't do, I'm convinced is sorcery, and, you know, I'll never be able to do it, and it's so cool that other people. So the ability to draw, you know, the ability to cook, and cook well, right? I can cook. I can apply heat to food and not make it like, you know, not poison people. But you know what I mean. So yeah, cooking is definitely one of those big ones for me. All right, Delude says, I would cook the wild blackberries to soften them, and then I would delicately braid a lattice crust over it. I would pour the other half of the berries over that first lattice, and then create a second braid on the top. That crust I would kiss with a buttered brush, and then into the oven the whole pan went. The cobbler would taste wonderful, both hot and cold, and for days I would sneak a little chilled cobbler for breakfast. Oh, that sounds wonderful. If you can, and I know obviously, everybody's circumstances are different, but I encourage you, by hook or by crook, if you can set yourself that goal of doing that again, I would love to hear that you returned to that fond memory, because that was very nice to read. The Earth Cellar. In the time of the Abbey, this was a shrine to St. Lucia the Eyeless. Since the heresies of the Intercalate, the Church of the Unconquered Sun considers her an aspect of the hour called Menascate, but back then she was just the patron saint of stained glass workers and eye doctors. The tree in Earl Bryan's field outside was traditionally hung with stained glass ornaments on St. Lucia's Day. Since the dissolution of the Abbey, though, it's mostly been vegetables in here. And on that note, we have a basket of vegetables, gifts from the garden, basket of onions, the prima materia of cooking. This may be why the cosmos is so shaped like an onion. A basket of vegetables, gifts from the garden, a basket of leeks, the marks of St. David's triumph, and very good in soup. So the Mist-Sunk Meadow and the Rustling Stair. Again, we're going to be focusing on probably the Worm-Eaten Hall. If I get lucky, I'd get to the Screaming Summit, but I don't think I'm going to do that. What I am going to do, though, is experiment with some veggies. So let's add the leeks for a start and the health. Okay, so perhaps if we add spice... Nope. Perhaps if we add the bowls? Nope. Perhaps if we add the knife? Nope. I'm gonna guess that leek cake is not the done thing. Dough? No. Dough spice? Nope. I tried. It does specify that it's an ingredient, I will note, so it's not immediately clear to me what I put them in. But it would seem to me like we have something to work with. I do feel that there's probably a better way to learn recipes than that I'm currently doing right now, but I just kind of brute forcing is the only way I've really been able to work out. I've actually been helping your father design berry patches in our own backyard, and they have been thriving more and more with each passing year. We actually had to prune the bushes back, and from clippings, another berry patch took root in the woods. Next summer, when I go visit my parents, I want to cook with my father again. In my childhood, we were sort of distant from one another, but we're growing closer now that I'm more able to articulate my thoughts, and he's more willing to voice his feelings. That's lovely to hear, Delude, and I hope that is what you wind up doing. I also will say some of what you're describing is actually why I like the cooking and the different aspects of this game. So if you happen to like a game that follows these moods, you can watch this stream, of course. But this is, I think, a worthwhile game to play. Not that I want to turn this into a commercial. Obviously, that's very heartfelt what you wrote, but. I definitely like some of the places this game winds up taking me. Okay, so we're opening up the container. I think we can afford a little more time before I make a firm decision on where we're going with things. But my assistant and I will be prudent. All right, let's give him Solomon's preparation. A nice drop. I can offer my assistant something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. That's great to hear, C. McLaughlin. I will actually say I've been debating. So I've been doing a stream, or not a stream, but a YouTube series going through roguelike, the subreddit, our roguelike dev. I've been going through their complete roguelike tutorial. So for those of you not familiar with it, on that channel, or on that subreddit, every year they go through a tutorial, I think from a community member or a series of community members, where they make a roguelike. There may be some, there are some things that probably the tutorial could have improved. I don't think it's been updated for a couple of years, but it's not bad, especially if you're someone like me and are pretty inexperienced. I think it's a decent little way to get you building something. And for me, it was actually also an excuse to just, load up another virtual machine. There's a couple of things that I wanted to test with that. And I also wanted to sit down and really think about my development environment, because very often, I know a little more than like a basic level of Python now, I think would be fair to say. But a lot of my work is data work. And so as a result, I spend a lot of time in Jupyter Notebooks. I spend a lot of time writing kind of these Kleenex programs that I use once and toss away. And that's just because, I'm used to programs like Stata, and, that's usually what I do with my do files, right? I'll keep something that can be rerun if somebody wants to see my results or wants to build on them. But I'm not building an operating system, right? I'm not building the sort of thing that requires, libraries or I don't create classes. There's all sorts of different things that I don't need to do, which I think some would consider rightly are sort of fundamental parts of programming. So this was kind of an excuse for me to say, okay, well, let's try something that I'm not accustomed to doing. And I can do that in the context of a game, and we'll see where that takes me. So one of the things, though, is that I finally got Rough working, which wasn't working originally. And I do like the default setting of Rough, which basically gives you every possible rule that someone, could want. And they sort of help me learn maybe some things that I wouldn't have even considered. So I decided what I would do. I'd do an intermission video, which is basically like a programming equivalent of a Yule log as I go through the 600 different errors that were present in that log. So the reason why I mentioned this to you is that I've debated about doing a video which is just purely organization, intended for the people who just like to put videos on in the background. But I also figure that's likely to be misleading, and people would be like, why the hell did you do this? It's just wasted my time. But the temptation is there for sure. And J-Lute says, between cooking and elements of the soul, it reminds me of what one Mr. Hollis once said about the humanity of creating recipes. Even when not in a place and time of plenty, human beings strive to create something that is pleasant in taste and smell and appearance. To recipe is to celebrate what we have and to overcome what we do not have. Okay, so I feel like I need to tell the story behind Stargazy Pie. So, that's rookie numbers. In fairness, it's Python, so I don't know if they count as compiler errors, but I know what you mean. Well, let me put it to you this way, C. McLaughlin. I'm not going to commit to it, but there may be something that makes you happy in the future. I may need to take a break to refill my tea, but because Daily Daybreak said something about recipes, I think this might actually be interesting to hear. So as you can see here, we've got the Stargazy Pie. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Wild Lady Windermere's fan. I'm going to take a minute here and bring up my dear friend Wikipedia. Too big. All right, so for those of you who can't quite tell from this image in the top left-hand corner, this is what Stargazy pie looks like. Or these lovely little fellas here. So, why would you subject yourself to such a dish? Stargazy pie. Stargazy pie is a Cornish dish made of baked pilchards, sardines, along with eggs and potatoes covered with a pastry crust. So, first of all, you would try this because it sounds delicious. Although there are a few variations using other types of fish, the unique feature of Stargazy pie is fish heads and sometimes tails protruding through the crust so that they appear to be gazing at the stars. Hey, Zangief, makes you want to go smelt dipping. Well, I know Zangief has actually been doing the Lord's work in Hush House, so you probably, if you've been renewing your elements of the soul, probably have enjoyed some of the Sweet Bones Stargazy pie in spring. The dish traditionally originates from the village of Mousehole in Cornwall and is traditionally eaten during the festival of Tom Bowcock's Eve to celebrate his heroic catch during a very stormy winter. According to the modern festival, which is combined with the Mousehole village illuminations, the entire catch was baked into a huge Stargazy pie encompassing 7 types of fish and saving the village from starvation. The story of Bowcock is popularized in Antonia Barber's children's book, The Mousehole Cat, which featured the Stargazy pie. In 2007, contestant Mark Hicks won the BBC's Great British Menu with a variant of the dish. So I will actually, you got a little bit of a hint here, but I'll read the origins just because I think this is kind of neat. But it's also nice in terms of what Delude had talked about. So the pie originates from the fishing village of Mousehole in Cornwall. As with many parts of Cornish heritage, a legend has appeared about its origins. In this case, the pie is served to celebrate the bravery of Tom Bowcock, a local fisherman in the 16th century. The legend explains that one winter had been particularly stormy, meaning that none of the fishing boats had been able to leave the harbor. As Christmas approached, the villagers, who relied on fish as their primary source of food, were facing starvation. On the 23rd of December, Tom Bowcock decided to brave the storms and went out in his fishing boat. Despite the stormy weather and difficult seas, he managed to catch enough fish to feed the entire village. The entire catch, including 7 types of fish, was baked into a pie which had the fish heads poking through to prove that there were fish inside. So this is the detail that I like. I mean, this is legendary, as it says, but this idea that the reason that fish are poking out is that because there is a famine going on and you want to sort of provide evidence that there's actually food there. Ever since then, Tom Bowcock's Eve Festival is held on the 23rd of December in Mousehole. The celebration and memorial to the efforts of Tom Bowcock sees the villagers parading a huge Stargazy pie during the evening with a procession of handmade lanterns before eating the pie itself. An older feast, held by the fishermen towards the end of December, included a pie cooked with different fish to represent the variety of catches the men hoped to achieve in the coming year. There is a possibility that Tom Bowcock's Eve is an evolution of this festival. Since 1963, the festival has been run against the backdrop of the Mousehole Village illuminations, where the entire harbor is lit up, along with many other displays. One set of lights even represents the pie itself, showing the fish heads and tails protruding from a pie dish underneath the stars. There was a rumor that the entire festival was a fabrication by the landlord of the Ship Inn in the 1950s. However, festivities had been recorded by Morton Nance, an author of the Cornish language, in 1927 in the magazine Old Cornwall. His description was regarding the festivities prior to 1900, though he doubted the reality of Tom Bowcock, suggesting that it was in fact Bowcock. He also went on to confirm the origins of the festival dated back to pre-Christian times, though it is unclear at what time the Stargazy pie became part of the festivities. Morton Nance went on to restore the traditional song sung on Tom Bowcock's Eve, played to the local tune Wedding March. A legend surrounding Stargazy pie, along with other unusual pies of Cornwall, is that they are the reason the devil never came to Cornwall. In his book Popular Romances of the West of England, or The Drolls, Traditions and Superstitions of Old Cornwall, a collection of Cornish traditions, Robert Hunt explains that the devil crossed the river Tamar to Torpoint. The chapter entitled The Devil's Quoits, etc., reasons that the devil discovered the Cornish would put anything in a pie and decided to leave before they took a fancy to a devilly pie, returning to Devon. And let me see if I can do... this is not the easiest thing to read, although I think it's actually quite a good little poem. Robert Morton Nance describing the Stargazy Pie. A merry place, you may believe, was Mousel Pond, Tom Bowcock's Eve. To be there then, no wouldn't wish to sup of 7 sorts of fish. When Morgy Bra had cleared the path, come lances for a fry, and then us had a bit of scad and starry gazy pie. Next come for maids, bra Dutchty Jads, as made our oozles dry, and ling and egg enough to make a roaring shark to sigh. And each we'd clunk, and elth were drunk, and bumpers bremen high, and when up came Tom Bowcock's name, we praised into the sky. So, what I kind of like about this, again, it's a difficult one to read, but it's like, once you get past it, like, it's a little bit like reading the Canterbury Tale, but just about anything, right? So if you've done certain English classes, right, if you get to a certain period of time in terms of English, for me, Old English we didn't have to necessarily do. So we didn't read Beowulf in anything but translation. But something like the Canterbury Tales, we definitely did. Shakespeare, obviously, we read in the original. And some of this stuff can be tricky. But once you get past it, then you start thinking about meaning, and you start to appreciate some of the things. So, for instance, when I started looking up, when come fair maids, Thrusty Jazz, there's something kind of fun about this, because it's describing a big party and the fair maids and all of that, but apparently the maids also are references to fish. So throughout the whole thing, right, you have a big party, you have the fish, it's a description of the pie, but like obviously all the sort of stuff that you would pay attention to in an English class, right, how the words are being used and potential double meanings and all of that, that's all still present. And sometimes it can be a little tricky to, again, when you have sort of that first layer you need to pull back, it can just be, okay, this is, I get to show people crazy pictures of fish pies and we get to talk about this one thing inside the game. But, once I actually sat down, I've been trying to get a little bit better at poetry. Because as much as I love reading, I did suffer sort of the same problem that some people do in their English classes in high school, for instance, where particularly poetry, what can happen is it's taught to you as this like cryptogram, and if you don't get the answer, or if you don't come up with the interpretation that the teacher had, then you get a bad mark. And obviously that's a really good way to kill your interest in literature, because of course there's a lot of fun in sort of realizing that there's more than just what's going on the surface of a story, right? Sometimes you can think about some of the bigger ideas, and particularly for poetry, you think very specifically about some of the words being used and the rhythms and some of the ideas that are kind of coming into your head when you do these things. So it's really fun. But if you are sort of compelled to do it, and obviously that's kind of what school is, but like if it just comes down to like there is, I guess if you reduce poetry down to there's an indirect meaning, but there's a definite meaning and you need to find it or you don't do well, that can have the wrong effect, right? And I mentioned this because I brought up the, this is just to say, the William Carlos Williams poem. And my coworker very specifically wanted to know, is this about mortality, or like they were trying to go a little bit further. And I'm like, I'm sure it can be, right? Take what you want from it. But I really just brought this up to you because it was Frozen Plums and, there's memes about it. And obviously that's not what its original intention was, but like that is reason enough to share, I think. Mostly because we were having a conversation about memes. So I tried to elevate the conversation with poetry. But again, for me, what I'm really trying to do is just take my time. And for this particular one, that was an opportunity for me to do it. And when I sort of did the translation, and I sort of started seeing how it worked, I'm like, oh, actually, there's something kind of neat happening here. So I don't know. Also, I just got to show you all Stargazy Pie. So probably not what you were expecting from that Delude, but I hope that was a fun little aside on your idea of recipes to celebrate what we have and to overcome what we do not have. So thank you, Tom. Down to the Grecians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. Okay, so we've got a couple of options in terms of where we are going with this. So I can try and get to... Nope, not the Fallen Bells. I can try and get to the Screaming Summit. Now, it did occur to me, I actually have a pretty straightforward way of getting the extra winter, right? We give him Islewater and the... Islewater and the U-Blank. And I'm actually kind of inclined to do that. So let's serve, pour out. While I do that, we will give him some lumber. I can offer my assistant any suitable timber I have lying around. This will increase their aspects. They'll also keep any of the wood that's left over. And I've kind of been trying to prolong the Hour of Doom, but I think the time has come for me to make some decisions in terms of the Tree of Wisdoms. So the question right now is, out of the Grail and Nock lessons, what do I want to put? Well, actually, here's the first question. So I've got, I want to get up to here, right? So I need to pick 3. Let's say, so if I were to use Serpents and Venoms, so that's giving up a Skolakosophy. And what kind of Skolakosophy? A Shapt. Okay, let's try and avoid that one then. What about a Sights and Sensations? Well, that would be a Nyctodromy potentially. That gets me a Fet. I'm not opposed to that. I would have preferred to put it a little bit further down the list, but that's a potential candidate. Glass blowing and vessel crafting. And this would have gone to Ithistry, so that's not the worst. In fact, that also helps get up to level 2, so I'm pretty sure... You know what? We don't even need to go any further. I think I found my candidate. So... let's think about the next level for things. So I probably don't want to use the Watchman's Paradoxes because I can't really decide between those right now. The Rhyme and Remembrance is a similar story. So Rhyme and Remembrance is Birdsong and Skolakosophy. Twin Serpent Tantra is Edict's Martial, but we haven't decided where Edict's Martial is going yet. Geminiad, on the other hand, is one I can work with. So that would be Weaving and Not Working. Now, I could potentially give that 2 levels, and that becomes my Bosk 4. But maybe I want it to be my Bosk 3. Who knows, right? But that's a potential candidate. Now, Deaths of the Moon, similar story. We've already committed snow stories, and so we're able to take the moon and the winter and advance that. And then we've also committed Resurgence. Okay, so I've got my trio back. But I think we've got better justifications in terms of putting these things in their place. So, let's really think about where this is going. Okay, so glass blowing and vessel crafting would need knock and sky, which I don't get from these. I haven't decided on desires and dissolutions yet. Weaving and not working, maybe. Insects and nectars. Tridesma Hyra I can't put in place. Actually, I kind of can. So let's take a minute here and think about what I need to get certain curses dealt with. This actually isn't the right way to think about it, but I'm still going to do it just so I can get it out of the way. So if I wanted to get a certain curse out of the way, I take the Keeper Skin. I need 7 nectar for that. And I guess technically I should think of it as 2. So, okay. So I can get 2 from most memories. So then I would want 5. So it's like 3 or 4, 3 or 5 for each of these. Yeah, I don't know. That seems a little wishy-washy for me to be working with. So maybe I'm just going to sit on these and wait for a better opportunity. But that brings me back to... this choice. So, supposing that I said, okay, I want to level up weaving and not working by 1, where would I put the other lesson? And then that's a heart or a moth. Alternatively, what would I be willing to put in position 3 in Bossk? And... well, that's one I can probably work out. So, you know what? If I took weaving and not working, I could put that in level 3. So that gets me my next level of Bossk. And then I could commit... actually, at that point, I have one of two... I have one of two possibilities there. I could... I could take the heart and use it to level up herbs and infusions. Or... why did I put a question mark beside this one? So I could use it to raise the floor on herbs and infusions, or I could find whatever I wanted position 4 to be for Bossk. Now, insects and nectars wouldn't work there. See, that seems like it should be a good idea, but then I think I run into the problem of coming up short on the lessons that I need. But I still think it's a good idea for me to work with weaving and not working. So let's do our best here. So we've got Natan's desk. If I take the core, I can take quenchings and quellings. And I can add the mop. Actually, I can also probably pull back on a couple of these because Fusine gives me heart. Okay, so the world's my oyster there, really. Let's use... I don't have that much in terms of options. I'll use the Triss, though. So heart onwards. I can master this mystery. Enough heart to match mystery heart. Maybe want to be a little careful about that. You know what? Let's back off. Let's actually use the reading room, because now I can use Faust instead. I can do the exact same thing, but I don't have to give up an element of the soul that I could use for the... yeah. So here, Faust isn't something that I would use to level up the... oh, I actually would have used that to level up glass blowing and vessel crafting. Right. But we can use the Whist instead. So I can master this mystery. Enough heart to match mystery heart. Pour it out. All right. So I'm going to leave the health and core aside, because if I can, I'd like to turn some of these into cooking opportunities. All right, a glinting cranial tchotchke. We all of us come to this condition in the end, but not all of us are fortunate enough to be lovingly buffed and fixed carefully to a stylish wooden stand. Give the visitors something to think about. Okay. So I'm going to want 1 tryst for the weaving and the not working, and I'm going to want 1 tryst for herbs and infusions. I'm going to want Faust for the great signs and great scars. Arab can be used for cooking. So that leaves me with the Fet and the Whist. Okay, yeah, we've definitely got something to play with here. So we go to the moor. Gonna start working on some dishes. So what do we have here? Should probably make some creamed sugar at this point. Mix creamed sugar, an ingredient for a higher purpose. And this is my last opportunity. I think we're okay for vegetables. Like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think in this case, I'm going to focus on the pears. I want to be a little careful in terms of what I'm committing, because obviously some of these we're going to level up. Actually, yeah, no, I don't need to get clever. Why do I think I can give Mr. Kill Isle water? I already gave him a drink. Pour it out. So there may be some food with winter. No, there's no way I can give him the potatoes. If I had to, I guess I could give him the pear meringue. Well, I mean, it's better than the alternative. Yeah, maybe I will give him the meringue. Let it clutter up their shelves. Yeah, so I think if I... yeah, so that doesn't count. So you can only benefit from 1 a day. So let me just double check where we're at. So we've got collaboration down. We've got... so collaboration, beverage. We don't have memory. We do have wood. And we don't have any winter tools. So I can give him a memory, which will take him up to 11. Which actually would be sufficient. Yeah, you know what? We're just going to talk with him. So I realize I'm all over the map in terms of... things that I'm trying to do today. The other thing that I should work out is So we're halfway through the day. Do I want to try and do something with my whist? Because I think my only options here really are to make some money. Well, that or I can craft. Actually, I should probably be focused a little more on crafting. So I will make a Solomon's Preparation. That's at least one of the whist accounted for. And then I guess I'm also going to need to make some memories if I'm going to be leveling up my yeah, actually, if I'm going to be leveling up weaving and not working, I probably want to get a nice stash of memories. So let's just cool it on the the confounding parable I'll use. Okay. I think I'm going to be a little more careful in terms of how I use my remaining elements of the soul for today. I just need a little more clarity. All right, creamed sugar, a precursor to sticky toffee pudding with bread, and to fudge without bread, both notorious as founding crimes of the 20th century culinary debauchery. So creamed sugar. Oh, did I already put creamed sugar in the? Yes, I did. That's how I knew how to make it. So, just heart. So, I think what I want to do first here is get a list of things that we can make with it. Okay. Fudge. I do think I have some bread that I can toss in. So we've got the pillow oat bread. Yep. Now I'm slightly curious. I'm going to just try and add kitchen utensils. I don't think this will be relevant, but I'd like to be sure. We'll add the spice scales in this case. Okay. And I'm going to guess that if I try to combine it with other things, this won't work, but let's maybe just take a peek, see what comes up. I don't think we can add any more sugar. Yeah, so I think that's it. Okay. I don't think I'm going to make anything with that. I was just a little more curious. I do need to kind of decide how I'm going to spend the rest of the day. Actually, let's get that sorted now. So the expectation is that I'll get one memory for weaving and not working. So memory gossip won't work there. Neither will confounding parable. So that already doesn't help me. But the occult scrap will. So I'll have enough to be able to get weaving and not working to 3. But I need something else for herbs and infusions, which tells me I should probably read Dirashu Quercum, which I'll do with my whist. I can level up Great Sign. Wait, why am I trying to level up Great Signs and Great Scars? I want to level up glass blowing and vessel crafting. We'll use the... Oh, I can't... Why can't I use the gossip? Because glass blowing vessel crafting is not... Right. Alright, there is always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms, if you haven't already committed it. Alright, so that's bought me a little more time to make some decisions here. That actually would have been good for the glass blowing and vessel crafting, but I couldn't have known at the time. I'm going to need to make some decisions soon in terms of what I use my remaining elements of the soul on. I think once we hit afternoon proper, the little hour called Nons, when the doors of the Mantis are most tightly closed. For the secular, the hours when we may anticipate tea or celebrate it. And the skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Glass blowing and vessel crafting. We are all vessels. Let us contain only what will grace us when the light shines through. There's a Blake. Okay, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Fragrant pears soft in the hand. This is going to have to go in the overflow, I think. Okay, so again, this is for weaving and not working. No, this is for the Moor. I almost made a terrible mistake and put weaving and not working there. Okay. I'm setting aside the whist. Okay, so these are so that I can level up weaving and not working and herbs and nope. I messed it up. So herbs and infusions needs heart or grail. So I'm going to set aside the health here. So this tryst is now free. So both of these can be used for memories. This core is the free agent. But I still have enough, I have time to figure out exactly what I want. So the hope is that I can still use the whisk to make a Solomon's Preparation. The Geminiad Volume 1, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty, and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. The cover is tooled goatskin decorated with garnet. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that weaves together the willing, an hour that is sought beneath the moon and at the water's edge, the sister and witch. The language is willful, naughty, poetic. It will take some untangling. The first volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the sister and witch have been known to manifest as the witch and sister, and that this face is always hungry, while the other face may heal. It implies connections between the sister and witch and the hours of the upper Mansis, especially the lunar hour called the Meniscate, but it is ambiguous on whether the sister and witch is a Mansis hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. So this gave me solace. Got 2 weaving and not working lessons as we expected. So let's first of all find a place to put the solace. That's impulse, stolen secrets, storms. I think this is the solace. Yeah, I'm running out of space for solace actually. Oh, shame on you. There you go. Okay. So gossip doesn't help me here. Neither does stolen secret. So let's work with what we have. and employ the tryst. So I am no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. So all that we need now is one memory that gives us heart or nectar. I believe we are already reading, yes, a book that will get me just that. We do not yet know whether or not I will get the winter that I need, so this tryst is going to get set aside. But I have enough now to be able to feel confident in making another Solomon's preparation. So muddle and mix a wintry preparation. Quenchings and quellings with scholar level winter plus flour creates Solomon's preparation. Ava's locks, a pale rack washed up on the beach by Brandkrug. All right, another gossip. I should probably get on with it as far as the memory is concerned, actually. Yeah, you know what? I'm not leaving this to chance. Let's do the Iron Book. All right, Dirashu Quirkum. In English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Baccata, the yew, is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had long understood the grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention, more usefully, that the minor ink of power Yugol can be brewed through the rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. Okay, so we're making some progress here. I think I'm going to wait till the bitter end as far as this timing goes. So my preference would be to get some more pears tonight. Okay, the skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. Foresight does not help me. I have the earth sign already, so we're good there. In fact, there's nothing that stops me from gardening. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So I do have the option of talking with him again, but I'm going to play it safe here and just take the memory that I get from the winter. I will also use the earth sign with weaving and not working to level up herbs and infusions. Let me just double check. Yep, this is the only one. So there's always more to learn. And the Ivory Book, a manual of the Ordo Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This manual was compiled by one Kurenai, who claims to have fled the tyranny of the Chrysanthemum throne to cross the world and join the Ordo. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the Ivory Chain, not to have commerce with the Hours. Followed literally, this would be almost impossible for an adept, so the manual contains numerous clarifications, exceptions, and processes of indulgence. Kurenai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that the souls of dead long are not given to the Hours. The Hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates, is to be invoked in secret in these rites, for with that Hour we have made an understanding. So there's the regret we were looking for. We're going to talk with Mr. Kill about that right away. So this should get me the 11 winter that I needed. I can discuss a memory with my assistants. And that's it. Everything else that we're doing, it's all in motion. So my only regret for today is that I don't have an occult scrap or an earth sign. But I mean, again, those resources exist to be used, so there are minor inconveniences about the fact that that's been used up, but it's not a deal breaker. It's also fairly unlikely that we're going to get a Numa tomorrow, so I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it's unlikely. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Now, we can't give that to Mr. Kill. That doesn't count as a tool. We do have some shelf space here. Okay. With Keeper level Winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the Great Ink Nillikant. And the skill is now level 2, its power aspects have also increased. Herbs and infusions. Pluck it, powder it, mix it, warm it, drink it. But not that one. Okay, memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. I'm trying to think if there's any advantage to me talking to Mr. Kill right now. I think I'm just going to use him to open the room. I'm going to double check what my options are. So I don't think this has winter. That's right. This one is 12, so unless we find another winter that I can give him, no, I shouldn't move forward there. This doesn't use winter, so this should be the only option. The Worm-Eaten Hall. This place bears the unmistakable traces of worms, the serpents which are no serpents. They are almost certainly gone, but we'll take no chances. Worms are difficult to evict from buildings, but much harder to evict from people. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon, so I need to pick what I'm going to keep in terms of memories. I think I'm going to keep the Revelation on the chance that we have a sunny day. Although the Foresight might be a little bit better if I thought I could get Denzel to open up the Fallen Bells. Actually, you know what? Let's take it, because we're waiting for that to go through anyway. So we've got Denzel gives us 2. So Metal gives us 2 as well. Fragrant pears soften the hand. Memory would be 2, so that's 6. Tool would be 7. T would be 9. So where does the remaining 2 come from is the question. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Oh, it is a good day for us. All right. The jail hall. Here the guards and the prisoners would take their meals. Sometimes callers, too, would descend from his tower and discuss philosophy with poisoners, ethics with Antaeans, theology with Labites. Afterwards, he would generally burn his notes. Okay, I don't feel the same pressure to get the books read, so I'm going to stick these back on the shelf. I'm also going to move... I'm going to have to move a few things around, so we'll put a glass of water. Got to make sure we keep the glasses of water in the right places in the house. Actually, I wonder if I can put that... Hey, I can fit that on the bedstand. Precarious. Okay. So the plan here is actually going to be to take a run at Unhatched Hymns again. I may wind up with a Fascinated Faust, but it's worth the risk. We do not yet know if we're properly winter yet, so I'm going to just take a second to make sure that we are well and truly in the appropriate season. There we go. I have carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. And I'm going to pick up these nocturnal books. So this is actually pretty good news, all told, because we'll be able to catalog these without too much risk. The next room is the Wormnod Kitchen, so I really am going to need to work on my winter here. This may be a case where I need to use the Wormwood Dream or bring in a special hire. We have a visitor, so the Affair of the Second Skin. Unless it's somebody who knows Vac, I don't need to worry too much about... I don't need to worry too much about... like, we'll just give him the book and move on. But that probably means I want to keep the talk verb open. So yeah, let's start with our reading. Unhatched Hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia, the eyeless patron of glassworkers, and name of the hour called Meniscate. So this is a book that requires Sabazine. There is a history where Alexander defeated the first great... There is a history where Alexander defeated first the great knot of Sabazos and then the King of Kings. There is another history where, instead, he learnt from them. How many more? If we curl our hands into the correct shapes, we may yet understand. So here we're going to add the revelation, and I think most of you kind of know where I'm going with this, but I will explain just in case somebody is new and curious how we go about this. Let me just make sure I have all the relevant details. Okay, so here's what I'm looking at, right? We've got Unhatched Hymns. This requires 10, it's a mystery 10 lantern text. I've just put 9 together, and part of this is because Sabazine gives us 1 point. Now, I'm in a pretty decent spot because if I need an element of the soul, I've got Whist. If I need a memory, I've got the Sunny, but there's also the chance that there's Weather. So we've definitely been hit by this before. There are situations in which I may not be able to get the where the book is not actually readable to me, but I've really just lined myself up with every possible advantage to being able to read this particular book. So I'm feeling pretty good about my chances here. And again, we get Sacra Solis Invicti from that. So as long as I give myself, I'll set aside a Whist to be able to level that up, but we should be able to get that to level 2 without any trouble. Next up, what do I want to do with my remaining elements of the soul? Well, we've got core, health. So all of these are my gardening elements of the soul, or alternatively, they are for cooking. Technically, Fet and Trist would be employed for sort of scavenging and searching. I mean, if I wanted, I could attempt some of these other more difficult books. I don't know, if a Hail Day seems like a good one for that. So let's say we use the 4 elements of the soul to catalog a book, And with that in mind, I can use one of the whist to earn some money, because then just at the end of the day, we catalog the last one. So I can offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. Actually, another thing I can do is get my occult scraps and all of that back, but I'll worry about that later. Okay, so we'll catalog one book at Ava's desk. We will catalog one book at Ambrose's desk. And catalog one in the reading room. While we do that, let's go to the moor. Rhyme rims the moor tarns. And we will also use Pearl and Tide to go beachcombing. And with Arab, we're definitely doing something cooking. So the next one on my list is sea pie. Where'd I put the dough? Right here. Bake a sea pie. I'm going to just double check that there isn't anything funny that I can do. Okay. It's probably not the most, probably not a critical one for me to make, but now as far as winter goes, I should maybe take a look at my options here. So I'm assuming we don't have anything. Yeah, quiet seasons. I'm guessing Agave Eterna similarly does not. Yeah. Lenten Rose and Winter. I think I should try at least get one of each of these things. So writes the roots there. And of course my favorite Blue Crown. And then we can make some decisions later what to do with the core and the health. Now as far as exploring the rest of the house, so let's say that we'll set aside the Wormnod kitchen for now. The weather may lead to me getting being able to open up the Blackened Staff room. If I can get into the Wormnod kitchen. Now the Wormnod kitchen is actually a good one because that gives me another kitchen to work with. So I'm going to prioritize that over getting to the Screaming Summit. But my most likely candidate here would be to try and get Denzel to go to the top here. Alright, now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. Traveling at Night, Volume 3. This looks like another door and wall. Now, door and wall's already at level 2, but this is an easy book to read, so this is one that I'm going to put on the pile over here. The duplicates pile. I do need to do a better job of resolving that. Just Verse is in a similar point where we already have a preliminary meter. But this shouldn't be surprising that we're getting to a point now where we're seeing not exactly duplicates, but we're seeing we're not seeing a lot of new skills. Like I'm at the point now where I really need to start making some tougher choices in terms of what I want to commit where. I guess we've got the Velletri interviews. I'll put this... That just feels wrong. Yeah, let's see how we do with Unhatched Hymns, and then we'll see where the day takes us. I haven't wanted to... I don't want to resist committing stuff to the Tree of Wisdoms too much, but I also didn't want to rush just because the more I commit without thinking, Wow. Unkind game. So I'm going to have to use up this whist. Mr. Fraser Strathcoyne, philanthropist, collector, former librarian, a complicated man, but not a cruel one. So he's currently inspired, someone with a higher agenda. So sympathy carapace, one who understands the possibilities of the carapace cross, alliance, awakening. So I'm actually kind of curious here. I believe if I wanted, if he's already inspired... Huh. So this is kind of interesting. So I'll need 6 suitable candidates, enough to reconstitute the old structure of the Curia of the Isle, with a new secretary persistent to replace Rowena. I'm mildly curious what happens when I hit start without having the complete number, but honestly, I don't know if Strathcoyne's the one that I want to commit here. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. And here's our sea pie, once a treat for sailors, hence the name. With spices and savor skill and pears, you might recreate a legendary dish. Interesting. Okay. So, sea pie. Oh, yeah, sorry, we already did that here. So it looks like this is a main course, the heart and mainstay of a good meal. So that gives us 1 forge, but if we take a sea pie, pears, so we should have all of these. I'm actually going to try the spice scales just to test the game on its King's Luck Pie! I should have known. Kitchen, King's Luck Pie. A beef pie with pears and cinnamon and secret ingredients is the traditional dish of the house. It was first cooked, they say, for King Henry when, in great secrecy, on St. Piran's Day he came to Cornwall seeking the king's metal, tin, to restore his alloy. It probably didn't happen, but the pie did. All right, so I want to see what happens if I put the Numa pear in. Nothing. But this definitely feels worth making. So make King's Luck Pie a dish with forge, grail, heart, knock, lantern, moth, nectar, and scale. I have no reason not to be talking to Fraser right now. Librarian, I have urgent business with you. I'm actually curious, if I give him traveling at night, does he... No, doesn't have any opinions of Christopher Lopoli. So let's have a chat with him about the affair of the Second Skin. You have heard rumors about me, no doubt. You will understand that I am sympathetic to any who undertake a pilgrimage of the flesh. Labites are rare, fallen Labites rarer still. If Abecassis continues to change, what will he become? So, a 4 scale text. Now, I don't think we have too many low-level scale texts. I think 6 is the best that I've got. Oh no, 108. History is hybrid, entirely eternity pure. I wish I could protect Abecassis. I would have liked to speak with him. All right, unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. So, 2 Sacra Solis Invicti. This is a new skill for me, and a Savage Hymn. Definitely welcome. Let's figure out where I want to put this stuff. I'm running out of little cubbies to put these in, which is not bad. I certainly have shelf space, but oh, actually, yeah, single foot songs were already covered. Cool. Okay, first things first. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill, and Serpentinite Slab. Too much stuff. I wonder if I have space for this. And sand. An hourglass, of course, is sand contained by sand. Okay, so I'm willing to do some more beachcombing and a walk on the moor. I'm still very fond of this particular piece of music. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue crown is one of those few. Lenten rose. Pretty, poisonous, no true rose. All right. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna make some dough. Right, another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms, the rites of the Church of the Unconquered Sun, and certain secrets of the gods from light. So here, let's move Wolf Stories down, because we know we're going to level this one up right away. Now, I pretty much have everything that I need, save for the lantern. So, and in fact, maybe what I'll do here is I'll try and keep the Savage Hymn. So, we should be restoring the Whist already. Yeah. King's Luck Pie. So let's get this written down. So still main dish. This has 2 forge, 2 grail, 2 heart, 1 knock. I didn't even have a lantern yet. 1 lantern, 1 moth, 1 nectar, 1 scale. Edge, forge, heart, winter, grail, knock, scale, sky, moon, nectar, moth, rose, lantern. Cool. There's a Blake always insisted on calling it the Great Pie of Power to the lasting annoyance of her peers. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to giggle every single time Thyrza Blake is mentioned at this point. Okay, I think we need to clear out the... I think we need to clear out this room, so we'll take the Armagnac. Well, we can have some decorate. We'll rearrange, let's say. Okay, so if I want, I can use the Trist to catalog this book. Trist is normally not one that I want to risk. I guess we're already restoring this Whist here, so yeah, let's level up Sacrosolus and Victi first. We'll use the sunny day for that. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So what I'm going to do instead, so I'm not going to go beachcombing with the Trist. I am, however, going to... we already have Strathcoin in my book, so I either want the Occult Scrap or Earth Sign, and given that my Consider verb is currently occupied, let's get the Earth Sign. Mixed dough, an ingredient for a higher purpose. So as far as dough goes, game pie, amber, pumpkin pie, pumpkin pie. Yeah, we still have a few more dough. I think I'm actually going to sort by ingredient 1 now. Alright, always happy to have the Bronze Spintria. And yeah, I think I have a pretty clear idea how the rest of the day goes. So the Savage Hymn gets... we sleep on that. We'll use the Wisp to catalog the uncatalogued book. We'll see what we get from Crowcross Sands and the Moor. And I guess the only other question is, can I get the Occult Scrap by the end of the day? I'm not 100% sure on that yet. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. All right, the granite slab is not quite what I was looking for. Let's set that up in the... I am going to have to do some spring cleaning, I think, but... so much sand! Kukerbit storage facility. Better now. Okay, let's think about the rest of the day. So, I think I value getting stuff done more. So let's... I'll restore the medal. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries, of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig was always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. So there's the earth sign, and tracks of beasts in the convulsions of his own carapace, an egg vein and shell shadow, the many-eyed one found these signs which can be history. An earth sign is an auspice traced on the cloaked shape of the earth, perceptible to the sensitive, interpreted only by the wise. Okay, so, yes, here what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the newspaper, yellowing newspaper. It's dated the year that Hush House was abandoned. Investigate the object. And dough. Let's start clearing out some of the storage. I used to read the contents of the rooms too, so here we have Isle Water from Brankrug's Deep Springs. I put the sand here already. We've got another lacquered bone chest set and mop and bucket. So obviously this is stuff that we've already cataloged before. Nothing is history when it first happens. An occult scrap. Secret histories are layered beneath the one we know, like the notes in a rare wine. The librarian knows this well. Okay, so at this point we're really just waiting on the metal. And so the logic here was it doesn't take that long to catalog, but I'm trying to remember if there is a... I don't remember if there is a malady for metal, but it's the one that I've least... To me, it's the one that is least likely to get a... the one that's least likely to get a malady based on just, like, anic data, basically, so... that's not really the reason why I'm using it here, but it's a nice little aside. Like, I don't have a whole lot of uses for metal right now, so eventually I'll figure out maybe something to do with Denzel here, but this is just a low-stakes way of getting that last book cataloged. And we've got our shipment from Cater and Hero just in time. I may want to get another beef, though. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. Ham. The taste will remain reliably unchanged for many years to come, which is, in some respects, an advantage. Ham. 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 Oh, that won't do. The accidental dripping. I've got way too much of this. And butter. We're going to be using that pretty soon, actually, so... Alright, I think it's not a bad time for me to wrap things up. I think what I'm going to do here is, I also forgot that I had my audio collection already. Sorry, just taking a minute here to organize. Yeah, so we will go to the end of the day just so I can have this sorted out. But I think we're gonna leave the rest of the work for Friday. So I don't know if I made as much progress towards getting a salon ready as I wanted. I mean, I'm very happy that I'm learning more about the recipes. So if I'm actually gonna save up here. So. So just to consult my my sort of list of ingredients. So the easiest thing for me to do right now is sort it by type, because there's a couple in here. So good example here. So potato and basket of apples don't really count as dishes, but I know their stats. This would also be true of cream sugar, rosehip jam, dough, meringue, and cake batter. So out of the things that I know how to create, we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first courses, one first dish in the form of the pickled mushrooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 main courses, keeping in mind that one of those main courses is still pickled mushrooms, so it's kind of counting one thing twice. We know 3 puddings and 2 side dishes. Hang on a minute. So in terms of things that I want to make, so the orange jumble, which takes almonds, sugar, and spices. Pretty much all the cakes are still an open question. So this would be blackberry jam sponge cake, rosehip jam sponge cake, knot cake, and Cornish honey cake. Oh, and Madeira cake. For creamed sugar, we've got fudge and sticky toffee pudding. For, right, there's a couple that we need to worry about. The crusty bread's going to be the one that's tricky for me to make, I think. But we have egg croquettes and pilchards on toast. I want to try making game pie, amber pumpkin pie, and apple pie. And then for eggs, boiled egg, scrambled egg, meringue, mackerel keggery, and ham and cheese casserole. Okay, I'm a little surprised that I didn't record the pear meringue. Let me get that written down. I'm glad I did this. I always keep losing this room. Here we go. So that one is 2 Grail. Oh, sorry. 1 Forge, 2 Grail Moon Nectar, and Winter. And that is a pudding. So I believe so I think crusty bread wound up without a label too, which I'm slightly annoyed with myself about. Did I just not record it? Sorry. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it counts as a side dish. Yeah, Yeah, so I mean, in terms of ingredients to make, in terms of dishes to make, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then, well, 21 that I know of, and then there's probably a handful that I haven't really studied yet. So I need to kind of prepare for that. I'm just going to take a quick audit here. So we've got cold pheasant with grape salad, baked pear meringue, pickled mushrooms, and steamed vegetable pie. For some reason, I duplicated rose hips. Okay, moving on. I have the jugged pheasant. Actually, there's no reason for me not to put... So obviously I have a pudding here, which we can put in place. These are main dishes, though. Yeah, I think I've overdone it on the main dishes, but that's not a bad place to be. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing any other obvious opportunities to make some notes on recipes available to me. So the dough is actually that's kind of the thing that's holding me back. I feel like I should probably be working on that in the next few days. But obviously, the real thing I want to work on is minimum... Yeah, I really actually want to get to level 6 for Hushery, because then I can make some decisions as far as where illumination goes. So, level 6 Hushery... I need to get to from 4 to 7 Nyctodromi so that I can work on Skolakosophy. I need 2 more levels of Bosk so I can get the Preservation opened up. And then 3 more levels of Horomakistry. And what that does is that opens up the whole Tree of Wisdoms for me. But one of the things that I do want to try and do on my own time is actually set aside some time to actually work out an ideal path through the Tree of Wisdoms for myself. And it's, again, just one of these things where it's a nice to have, but if I'm struggling to try and get the stream started on time, you know, I'm kind of aware of my limitations. Anyways, sorry, I'm babbling on too much, and I need to wrap up for tonight. So thank you everybody for hanging out. I hope you had a good time. I know it was a little more quiet today, but I also noticed there was somebody else playing Book of Hours, which is a nice... that is a nice thing. Obviously, it's good when there are multiple people playing the game. I am going to host Revive Snow, who I know I've been hosting quite a bit in the evenings, but they happen to be online. So I'll be back on Friday. More Book of Hours. I'm going to see, like I said, if I can get some of that. I'm going to see if I can get some of that planning for the Tree of Wisdoms done. Our goal is to do more salons. I also want to try and get to a point where I am completing more stories for people. But, you know, that is a question of the passage of time. So we'll see where it goes. But all of that, of course, will be handled in the future. So again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoy Revive Snow's channel. And hopefully we'll see you Friday. If not, see you the following Monday or Let me just double check when the next holiday is. I think it's the first week of September. So yes, next week we should still be on the regular schedule. Anyways, have a lovely evening. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.